So over the last couple of weeks, I've recently hit 10,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel. And I just wanted to take the opportunity to do a video going over how the channel has evolved over time, how my investing strategy has evolved over time, what I've learned along the way about myself, about content creation, about investing, and in general, just a video to say thank you to everyone who's liked, watched, subscribed, commented along the way. I'm super thankful. I'll also be really transparent in this video about the money side of content creation. So this isn't a portfolio update or an in-depth discussion about an investing topic. It's just a relaxed chat going over those things I've just outlined. And yeah, I've got some points on my phone and we'll just start straight away. So first of all, why did I actually start this channel? Well, I started this channel back in mid 2023 because I was spending so much time watching investing content, reading about investing, reading about personal finance. I thought, I want to be more productive. Rather than just consuming all of this, I want to actually start creating content myself. At this point, I've been investing for about 3 or 4 years, and I really want to share my portfolio and things that I've learned along the way as well. Always with the caveat that I'm not an expert, I'm not a financial advisor. That's why the channel's called Tom's Personal Finance. I'm Tom, and it's all about my personal finance journey. My first ever video was an Invest Engine Stocks and Shares ISA portfolio update, and at the time, my portfolio was £12,000. And I cringe when I listen back to that now. I think I've actually privated that first ever video just because I can't bring myself to listen to it because the audio's terrible. I'm speaking so quietly for some reason. And it's just basically screenshot, screen recording of my Invest Engine portfolio. Maybe I'll unprivate it, but yeah, I'll think about that. And then beyond the portfolio update, it came into me wanting to discuss topics as well. Things that I thought weren't as well discussed, but also just in general beginner investing stuff, because we're still, for the most part, a nation in the UK that doesn't invest enough. And it's such a shame because obviously savings alone aren't going to allow people to achieve their long-term financial goals. On the other hand, investing does come with risks. And that's why I have all the disclaimers on my videos. Of course, there are risks of investing. So it's super important we go into investing with the right mindset and mainly just the long-term mindset and accepting that there is risks, there is volatility, diversification is super important. There's no get-rich-quick schemes. And yes, we will all make mistakes as part of our investing journey. And I think that's what we all have to accept because although the basics of investing are super simple, it's just natural for all of us to want to try out different strategies. We learn more. And I think with investing, there really is that Dunning-Kruger effect, the curve where you start off and you feel super confident. And then as you learn more, you feel not confident at all because you realize the things that you thought you knew, there's more to it. And then a few years down the line, you might start feeling confident again. And maybe it'll keep on going up and down, but there's definitely things with investing that you have to experience as well as just read about it. It doesn't matter how many times you read about a certain thing until you actually experience it, whether it be a market crash, overlapping funds, actively managed funds, whatever it may be. We all have a different thing that we actually have to experience to learn about. And for me, that was finding the right investing strategy that worked for me, experiencing active managed funds firsthand. I invested into one right at the peak, and that kind of links to the topic of persistence. I thought because I kind of knew the stats behind active managers not being that good, but I thought this active manager, their track record was amazing. So maybe they knew what they were doing, but the problem is persistence. Just because they've outperformed historically does not mean they have the magic touch that they can continue to outperform. It may have just been luck, or they may have just benefited from that market cycle that favors their type of investing. But we're going on a bit of a tangent here. Let's stick to what we're talking about in this section of the video. To sum up, the main aims of the channel were primarily talking about my own investing journey, covering topics that I found interesting, deep diving into ETFs because I found that super fun, and also in general, just doing my little bit towards UK investing content and getting more people into investing because, as I say, investing is super important, but we don't talk about it enough in the UK. Obviously, nowadays, we've finally had Martin Lewis talk about investing. So I think things are generally going in the right track, and we have amazing, huge channels like Damien Talks Money, Toby Newbert, Pension Craft that are just doing amazing things, getting more people into investing and feeling confident. Now, what I've come to love about content creation, the primary thing that I love the most about content creation is the comments. Views are great when it comes to videos. It's great to see a big number when you upload a video and it's doing brilliant. Like YouTubers will know the whole ranking system it gives you when you upload a video. It'll say like 1 of 10 or 10 of 10 in terms of views. But the number one thing that keeps me motivated is the comments. And I remember the first ever people who commented on my channel, just to name a few right from the start. I remember on my first ever video, I think Michelle commented. There's Anthony on my first few videos. He still comments now. Thank you, Anthony, if you're watching this. There's Dave. There's so many. Steve, Eric, just to name a few. And whenever I see the names that have been watching my videos for a while and I see them pop up in the comments again, it's just brilliant. That is what motivates me, knowing that we've got a small community of people who enjoy watching my content and I enjoy interacting with them in the comments. And if there's anyone I haven't named there, it's just because I'm naming a quick few off the top of my head. I'm really thankful to every single person who comments, both people that have been watching for a while and also people who comment on the channel for the first time. The comments are really what makes it feel real and feel like you're actually engaging with other people. Because at the end of the day, I'm just talking into a lens here, so it's great to get some feedback. And also in the comments, it's a real mix of beginners asking questions and also experienced investors giving their take and what they've learned about investing, what they may disagree with. And I'm happy for people to disagree with me whenever. The only time that I will block someone from the channel is if they're just being straight up rude, which is, I've had to block so few people. So I'm really thankful for that. It's almost ungrateful in a way, but I'm really bad at focusing on the 1 or 2% of negative comments. And I need to stop doing that because, as I say, the vast majority is positive, and it's ungrateful of me to focus on that small amount of negativity. And on that point, if you are thinking about starting making videos on YouTube, Instagram, whatever platform you want, expect there will be some negativity, but overall, what you'll find is most people are positive, good people, and it's a really rewarding experience. It's a lot of hard work. You have to put the effort in and not expect results straight away. And also what you'll come to realize is your expectations adapt real quick. So I remember when I first started, I was so excited with every single subscriber I was getting, and you get obsessed with the analytics, refreshing all the time. And luckily, I'm not as obsessed with analytics anymore, but God, these social media apps really know how to keep you hooked with all the analytics, the YouTube Studio app specifically. And now we're going to caveat to my investing strategy. And it's kind of been documented on this channel how my investing strategy has changed over time. I started off with index trackers on Invest Engine and kind of like breaking down the world into developed markets and emerging markets or different ETFs for different regions of the world. Then I moved to factor investing type videos. I learned from Ben Felix, James Shack, and doing further research on the internet, I learned about factor investing. And the problem was at the time, factor investing, there was very limited options when it comes to ETFs that allow you to gain exposure to factors in your portfolio. For those who have not heard about factor investing, it's basically about identifying characteristics of stocks that have historically explain excess returns in the market. So historically, there's research that shows small-sized, profitable, and cheap from a valuation perspective companies have outperformed the market. That's just a few factors. So profitability or quality factor, value, there's also momentum, size, small companies, there's minimum volatility. And there is also an argument to be made that there's like a factor zoo, that there's just so many factors. The thing is, what I liked about factor investing was it was underpinned by some research. There's something behind it that historically these type of stocks have outperformed the market. And I knew straight away, no guarantees going forward. All the videos I've done on factor investing, I made very clear that past performance doesn't guarantee future results. It's super patchy. You'll have a few years in a row of quality doing really well. The quality will do really badly. You'll have value do nothing for 10 years, and also the value is a top performing factor again. So you have to accept with factor investing, performance is lumpy. There's no guarantees that your factor that you pick will outperform the market over the long term. And whilst there is some evidence, there's some research backing it, no one knows the future. So all these things, I knew that, but I still went ahead with building a factor-based portfolio. And at the time, I had a wisdom tree, global quality dividend growth, X-Trackers MSCI World Quality, and then I had an MSCI World Value, Momentum ETFs, and a US Small Cap ETF. And I put these all together, and I thought, I'll be able to stick to this because I've got a mix of different factors, it's globally diversified. And you know what? I was wrong. Behaviorally, I just could not stick to that. I was always second-guessing the portfolio, thinking, oh, do I increase the weighting to quality? Do I reduce the weighting to value? Oh, should I cut momentum now? And I was a terrible factor investor behaviorally for that type of factor portfolio. I just couldn't stick to it. I was always thinking which part to rebalance. And I was like, for these premiums that may not even persist and slightly higher fee ETFs, is it worth it? And I thought in the end, the answer was for me, no. And that's why for the most part now, my portfolio is in a global index tracker again. But I still enjoy factor investing. And we're also lucky enough now, there's a number of new factor investing related ETFs that have been launched, specifically by Avantis and Dimensional. So Avantis and Dimensional, basically the kings of factor investing implementation over in the US, especially Dimensional being around for a number of decades and Avantis more recently. But I've done videos talking about factor investing in more detail, but basically, if they can't get factor investing implementation right, then no one can. So nowadays, what I think about it is if I want to go down the factor investing route, I have those investment products there. But for the most part, keeping things simple is what works for me. So I've gone through a really weird investing journey in the sense that it is kind of that Dunning-Kruger thing where I learned more about different things. I was feeling confident. And then I thought, actually, I've learned something new now. I underestimated this side of it and I was back down to feeling not confident again. And now I feel really confident again. So let's hope this time I'm at the top. But I do feel that that's an example of where theory meets practice. So in theory, I thought I'd be able to stick to it. In practice, I couldn't. And that's how my investing journey's evolved over time. I'm not the perfect investor, but that's what I've learned. And I'd love to hear what you've learned about your own investing practices in the comments below. Let me know. I always want to do a much more detailed video going over factor investing and everything I've learned along the way, because it's such a niche topic and no one really talks about it in the UK. So I feel like as someone who's looked a lot into it, experienced a lot of the different ETF options and keeps on top of the news, I'd love to just do a video where I talk about all of that and go into detail about what I've learned, things to look out for, and the challenges of trying to be a factor investor in practice. Okay, now I want to talk about how the channel has evolved over time. So when I first started this channel, I was just doing faceless videos and I was basically scripting, recording the audio, and then creating the slides and the screenshots to show on screen, and I would just put the audio over that. And there's a few reasons for that. One, because I didn't really have a camera, but even if I did have a camera, I didn't really feel confident to talk on camera. I'm still getting used to that now, but basically I was just doing the faceless videos and they took so long to put together because I basically had to script every word I was saying, record the audio, edit out all the mistakes, and then I had to create a slide or images for every single thing, every part of the screen. When you do a faceless channel, just that's something to be aware of. If you want to do that, go down the faceless route, you have to think about what's going to be on the screen all the time. Obviously, when I'm doing a video talking to the camera, that's less of a problem because I'm on the camera. There's something on the screen all the time. So if you do want to start creating content going down the faceless route, just think about that. That's the thing you have to consider. And on the actual content I was creating, I was doing like pretty niche ETF breakdowns, talking about parts of ETFs that people didn't really talk about alongside my portfolio updates. And over time, I just kind of realized that's a bit too niche. And although I'm interested in it, speaking more broadly, it's not something that will help many people or is interesting to many people. And that's fair enough. And that's what I've learned. So nowadays I do more broader topics while still sometimes talking about those niche stuff. And I've kind of found the balance between what actually people are interested in, what is helpful, but also not taking away from what I actually want to make videos on as well. And you do have to find that balance, because if you go completely away from what you're interested in, it's going to show in your video. So it's super important to stick to your roots, but also be willing to branch out and experiment, basically. And more importantly, it's not just about discussing topics, it's also how they actually play out in real life, implementing them behaviorally, the actual, as a person, how does it feel to implement those strategies? Going back to factor investing, that's something that I think needs to be talked a lot about on YouTube, because especially in the stock picking circles, I've never really been too much into stock picking. And when I have, it's always been from the factor-based perspective. But I think there's a danger of people completely not discussing the actual challenge of holding this portfolio. And in a crash, holding an individual stock portfolio will be super difficult, and being dishonest about the level of risk that these individual stocks have. And I basically just want to balance learning about investing, but also talking about the implementation and how to actually do it in practice and the difficulties on that regard. And now the last bit I wanted to talk about in this video is, from a transparency perspective, is how do I make money on this channel? Because I've talked about this before in a community post, but never actually on video. And basically there's 3 different main ways I make money from this channel. From YouTube itself, there's AdSense. So people watch the video and I get paid from YouTube AdSense. This can typically be between £5 to £10 per 1,000 views. So that's nice, but you can think about how if I only had AdSense, it'd be difficult to justify the time it takes to make these videos. I also get paid from YouTube members, and I'm really thankful for people who are members of the channel. But then the 2 main sources of income beyond that are affiliate links, so affiliate codes, affiliate links. So the ones I link in my description or ones I talk about in the video, I always disclose it. If you use those link or codes, you'll get a discount or a kickback, and I'll get a small commission as well. And then the final way is brand deals or sponsored videos. This is where you actually get paid upfront to make a video or include a sponsored segment in that video to talk about a specific brand. And I'm lucky enough that I can actually count on my fingers how many brands I've worked with over the whole duration of this channel. And I'm lucky that I can be picky, because every single day I get really dodgy emails about people from brands wanting to sponsor the channel. They're usually offshore, or there's some platform with terrible reviews. And I'm not just talking about straight up scams. I'm talking about actual legit platforms, but I just think their offering is terrible. There's a certain few brokers in the UK that email quite a lot and they pay quite a lot as well. And I see others go with them, and I think that's fair enough. People can do what they want, but I just personally think their offering is awful. So I'm happy that I'm able to turn them down and be super selective, because your credibility is all that matters when you're creating content. And and by being super selective, and as an anxious person, I just want to only be able to take sponsorships from brands I genuinely believe in, that I think are genuinely good. And yeah, I'm lucky enough that I've been able to do that. On the topic of affiliate links and brand deals more generally, obviously a lot of them are investment platforms. Because of my niche, stocks and shares ISA providers are going to be the main sort of the most relevant brand that's going to reach out to work with me. And I understand that if I have an affiliate link or a sponsored video by a platform, I am therefore biased about investment platforms. I can say to you that I will always be honest about investment platforms. So there's always going to be that bias, and I'm not going to pretend that bias doesn't exist. I think in the UK finance niche, there's sometimes people can say that like, oh, they're perfectly unbiased despite the fact they have these affiliate links or sponsored deals. And I think that's impossible. But I also think you can still be honest and share honest opinions whilst also having these links. Look at Money Saving Expert, for example. That entire website is built off educational pieces, helping people make decisions. But also, I'm pretty sure the number one source of income for Money Saving Expert is affiliate links. On pretty much every page, there'll be some sort of affiliate link for a product or platform. So it is possible to stick to your morals, be honest, but also have this monetization. And I'm super thankful that I'm able to make money from this content creation. And I go above and beyond to label everything that includes a commission or is sponsored. I will always label it as such. I have been accused by people in the comments sometimes of being sponsored by like fund providers. And to date, it may change in the future, but to date, I have never been sponsored by a fund provider like Vanguard, iShares, WisdomTree, Avantis, X-Trackers. If I had been sponsored by all these fund providers that people have accused me of being sponsored by, I would be a very rich man. I haven't been sponsored by any of them. I've only been sponsored by investment platforms and a couple of other things that aren't investment platforms. But basically, I've never been sponsored by a fund provider. If that changes in the future, it will be clearly labeled. And just because I have an investment in my portfolio does not mean I'm sponsored by it. I just picked that because based off my own research, I've decided that I wanted to invest in that. I've never been sponsored by a fund to invest into it. I just had to get that out of the way because I saw a comment on another video saying, I'm really disappointed, Tom, that you were sponsored by such and such fund provider. I was like, I haven't been sponsored by them. Where have you got this from? And I think they mixed me up with another content creator. So it was just interesting to be accused of being sponsored by something I never have. But yeah, that's it for this video. It's just a bit of a rambly one. Thank you for 10,000 subscribers. Going through how the channel's evolved over time, how my portfolio's evolved over time, how I think about investing, transparency. And I just hope that was interesting. I hope that helps anyone who's thinking about creating content themselves, anyone who's viewed the channel over the years and just interested about those things. Yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, thank you for watching. We'll be back to the usual content soon enough.